Rob, we've got a viewer question here from Tom Broster. Tips for practicing self-restraint and purchasing a big hitter piece rather than multiple lower end pieces. This is one that I like because I kind of cycle through myself.
That is the hardest question.
Yeah, well, what are your thoughts?
It's legitimately, I think, the hardest question in watch collecting.
Okay.
Because, like you said, you go in waves and you go through cycles and all these things. There is no right answer. And I'm convinced of it.
That's the key. There is no right answer.
No, having gone through the cycles multiple times, because if you're in the game long enough, you're gonna be, there's those charts of like, you love Rolex, Rolex is the best, Rolex sucks, Rolex really sucks, oh wait, Rolex is not that bad, oh wait, I love Rolex, Rolex is the best.
And then there's micro brands or German Thule watches or the world of Seiko.
Yes.
Or vintage pieces. I mean, there's so many things that you can really delve into and love.
Yep.
Maybe that experience isn't permanent though.
Yes.
So, I mean, speaking for myself, I've had times where I've had maybe 24 watches and most of them Seiko divers.
Yeah.
And I, as I was building that collection, I was having so much fun, but eventually I'm like, I've got way too many watches. And if I would have just took the money that I spent on these 20 watches, I could have bought X piece, like one amazing gold complicated watch or multiple steel heavy hitters. Like there's a lot to consider.
Oh yeah.
So with Tom here, like.
Again, Tom, great question. There's just no right answer. Because even when you're doing that, when you're rationalizing like, oh, wait a second, if I consolidate, I could get this big piece and that big piece, and I would wear those two. I even internalize that decision and go, but is that the best use of my funds to just have those two heavy hitters? Because I feel like in a way you're limiting yourself because you're missing out on this entire world of the micro space.
Well, you lose versatility when you have 3 watches.
Yes.
Like they might be awesome.
Okay, you have a sub, you have a speedy, and you have a date just or something, and you're like, wow, I have classics, amazing watches. Every single person is like, great watch, great watch.
Grail level watch for many people.
Yes, but then you look at it and you're like, if I sold that sub, I could get 10 micro brands. I could have a dress watch, a diver, a pilot, a pizza dial chronograph, all this whimsical stuff.
A SpongeBob watch like the one behind you.
Like you can literally you can go through any media checklist and you say, you know what? I've got a blue watch for Blue Watch Monday, Blue Monday dial or whatever. I've got a Speedy for Tuesdays. You go through and you check all those little boxes. Seiko Saturday, all of that.
Yeah.
Some people find enjoyment going down those roads.
There is something to be said about that. I know when I see sometimes a new release, I have to have it. Like Seiko, when they just did their solar speed timer, which we've talked about.
Yep.
I saw it in the metal not too long ago. Oh, it was lovely. So you know what? It's a $600 watch. I think for $600, I'm going to love that watch and get a lot of enjoyment from it. So I'm going to buy it.
Right.
And so Tom's point there, I don't necessarily think that you have to keep your nose to the grindstone and deny yourselves watches that pop up. If you're a true watch lover and something grabs your attention, I think you should go for it. But I also, at the same time, have, from my own experience, I love the heavy hitters too. And there was a time where I sold almost my entire collection and I went down to a 3-watch rotation. It didn't last, but I learned some things from the experience. So,
I think that's what you just said is the key here, is the experience, to learn from the experience, okay? Understand as a collector that you will go through phases, that you will go through that Seiko-holic, like I am a complete addict for everything. I went through and I tried to get every iteration of the diver, right?
Yeah.
I went with the Willard, the Slim Willard. I went with, you name it, like all the way through, right? I'm going into the nuanced, the quartz, SKXs of the 80s, the 7005 series, all this stuff. And I look at it and I go, kind of that same thing. Like I'm looking at the watch box going, I have 12 watches that are literally the same thing. They are the slight variants of it.
If
of
you
the
showed
wood.
your wife, she'd be like, Robert,
Yeah.
what did you do?
Exactly,
You bought the
like
same thing.
Well, no, you don't understand. This turtle is different than this turtle because it's separated by 30 years.
Yeah, they
This
only
is,
made this hand for this.
yeah, this is a 6309 and this is an SRP 777.
See that icon? That's called the SUA logo. Let me tell you about
Yeah,
it. She's
Danny
stop.
Sekosha, like all this. You can go down those roads and you can have fun. And if it lasts you your entire collecting journey, awesome. And if you have 150 Seikos and they're worth a collective date just at the end of the day, so be it. But the key is the experience, the journey, and that's what's the value.
Keeping the open mind.
Yes.
I don't have to have the same experience that Robert's had.
No, and if Robert and Bruce are telling me to consolidate and go and buy a Date Just because of how amazing the Date Just is, which it is amazing, by the way.
Yeah, it is.
It's usually one of my go-tos if I want one watch to recommend to somebody.
Yeah.
You can't go wrong there, right? But let's just say you and I Date Just. Guess what? You can say, those guys are stupid. I love my 6117 Navigator from 1972. That's all I need in the world.
Yeah.
And that's perfectly fine.
And that's the magic of loving watches.
Right.
Like,
And
find something that speaks to you and enjoy the heck out of it.
while you're in that season.
Yeah.
That season might change and you go from vintage Seiko to then going into the micro brands, or from that, vintage Seiko to Rolex, who knows what. But just
All sorts.
Just know that there are no limits, there are no straight roads. Everything is open.
Yeah.
But you have to know what you're in for.
Well, that's the key. And I'll end with this to Tom Broster. If you really want to practice self-restraint and go for those heavy hitters, but you have that itchy trigger finger where you got to buy a new watch, I would suggest keeping an eye on the used market. Find a good deal when it pops up and swoop in with a nice offer. Get yourself a new watch. Maybe change up the strap on occasion, make it feel a little bit different. So if you're not overspending and you're smart about your purchases, you can still have fun while you're saving up for a Date Just or a white Speedy or whatever the case may be.
Right.
You can to a degree do both if you're measured about it.
Right. I mean, if you want to take the analytical approach, just know I'm going to have 90% of my budget going towards the heavy hitters, and just know you're going to have a little off to the side to account for that whimsical micro that comes up, and you're like, holy crap, I've never seen a dial that color. Or wait a second, all of that, and it only costs $600?
Yeah.
That's freaking awesome. Because those are amazing watches, and they should be, celebrated. It doesn't mean have to have a whole collection of it, but you should have some, portion of your collection.
Or you just recognize while you're going through your journey and your tastes are going to change. This is a hobby. You're not investing. This is not your portfolio.
Nope.
You will lose money. You will likely lose a lot of money over 10 years of watch collecting, but that's part of buying yourself an education and having a lot of different experiences.
I rationalize it as like, it's actually still more beneficial to go this way and lose money on watches than it is to blow all that money on, say, golf. Because I can't sell all my rounds of golf, So if you think about it in those terms, all that money and all that time spent playing golf is great, but at the end of the day, it's not something that you can actually recoup on the back end.
We all have hobbies that can be money pits.
Yeah.
Choose the one that you're the most responsible in, I guess.
Exactly.